Good morning, I'm Jess. I'm on the way to work. I'm going to Fossey Taylor. Fossey Taylor is a group of companies. We make investing in property easy for clients that might not have the time, the skill or the inclination to invest in property. Investing in property is a tricky business. Holding a property portfolio, that's easy. You know, long term, throw a property over your shoulder, it sits in a letting agency, and I can look after a couple of hundred properties nearly in about 6 hours a week. Buying properties, that's the tricky bit. So that's what we do at the Fossey Taylor Property Group. Now, I've got a question this morning. The question is buy-to-let still worth doing with the new stamp duty and mortgage interest relief changes? Well, there's a question. Short answer, yes. There we go. Should we just leave it at that? Yeah, it is. And it really is. So it does depend. I think it would depend on a number of different things, really. Where you are, how many properties you've got right now. You might want to think about making some changes. We'll run through those in a minute. I guess for us, it hasn't really made much of a difference because of where we are. And we're purposely here because being here is a phenomenal yield already, naturally. In the areas we invest, and it's broadly speaking, the East Midlands is where we invest. Nottingham, Derby, North Nottingham, the South Yorkshire border, maybe a bit over, almost as far as Stoke, that kind of area, Burton-on-Trent, round in that area. Very roughly, and you dig into the details, they're all slightly different, but very roughly, property prices about half the national average, and incomes about the national average. Your yield, therefore, stands to reason, is very good. We can buy houses cheap, and they rent out actually for decent money. The outliers would be we could buy a house sort of £50,000, maybe 60, and it would rent for 475 to 550, that kind of money. We might buy a house for 80 to 100,000 pounds, and it might rent out for £700. So you can see already we've got a pretty good yield. We always buy cheap, we always add value, so that's a given. If you're doing that, first of all, the stamp duty question, we get rid of that straight away. Pay it, simple as that. In our case, it's actually not that much because stamp duty is zero from £40,000 to £125,000, and therefore for us it's the 3%. So you have to pay the rule, in case you don't know, is if it's not your principal private residence, it's not your first home, if it's a second property, a holiday home, a buy-to-let property, whatever it is, you, when you're buying this property, are liable to pay 3% more than the standard stamp duty rate. Our stamp duty rate is zero, so now we pay 3%. It's rare that we buy a house over £125,000. We find that the yield tends to run out of steam a little bit before that. Plenty of houses we buy under 125 become worth 125, but you don't pay stamp duty on a remortgage. So bottom line, for stamp duty, pay the 3%, cost of business. You don't have to think too far back. Before stamp duty was 2.5% anyway, so I'm looking at it as it's a bonus that it's been zero for so long. So that's one. We treat it as these stamp duty increases as a cost of the business. There've been some well publicised changes to the way property income is taxed. If you own a property in your own personal name, you are no longer able to offset the mortgage interest against income. So essentially you are taxed at the full rental amount. That's the way it's set up at the moment. However unfair that is, number of challenges going on. Will it always be like that? My own personal view is, I don't know, probably will. I'm not sure how much it is about raising taxation as to perhaps getting the tabs on all those unwilling landlords, accidental landlords that are out there in the world, and by doing this, you gradually getting to know about more of them and taxing more of them. That's maybe a cynical view, I don't know. If you invest in the areas we invest all the time, a similar kind of area to where we invest, where we've got really good high yields, then you could just take it as a cost of business. And I know a number of people who aren't making any changes at all. Yes, I'll be paying slightly more tax. You only pay tax on money you've earned, and there should be some left. That actually doesn't play out completely with this, because it is possible if you've got a very highly geared property that doesn't make very much money every month anyway, and you've got a high mortgage, then you could actually end up losing money. I would say that none of the houses that we buy will ever fall into that category because they're cheap houses. Clients tend to stick to sort of 70-75% loan to value. That's down to yourself anyway. You know, you can choose that if you're worried about it, perhaps go lower. And you know, they yield well. So we're seeing some clients just saying, look, it's a cost of the business. I make more money out of capital growth anyway. We've got great capital growth in the areas where we buy. We buy cheap, we add value. What I'm doing here makes sense in all sorts of different ways. I'm just going to pay a little bit extra tax. Some clients are just doing that. So that proves to you that it really isn't that much of a big deal. Incidentally, if you buy and keep buying houses, you can offset a good chunk usually of the repairs and renewals that go into the renovation. And if you keep doing that and you keep buying, it might be quite a long time before you're pushing a profit anyway, because they can be rolled up. Anyway, the next thing to say is we're not accountants and we are not financial advisors. We don't advise you in any way. Fossey Taylor, there's a group of 17 people here in the office. They can advise you in all sorts of things. We buy houses, we do them up, we rent them out, property professionals through and through. But when it comes to this kind of advice, we have to bring in the wider team. So the wider team could be, well, generally speaking, it could be surveyors, it could be solicitors, it could be all sorts of mortgage broker. The person we'll probably put you in touch with here is an accountant. I can tell you what my accountant's told me. I can tell you what my clients are doing because the accountant we put them in touch with has told them the same thing. So our accountant has said, well, he's recommending to most of our clients, and he's again caveating this with, it's not suitable for everybody. You've got to assess your own personal circumstances because it might not be suitable for everybody. But in more cases than not, incorporating your property portfolio will stop get around this whole issue of not being able to offset your mortgage interest. It's only a sort of an option for the Chancellor to be able to do this, because property income, if you hold property in your own personal name, you declare the tax and the income on your self-assessment tax form. I think it's Schedule B, D, I can't remember, but it used to be called unearned income. You can write something in the budget that goes specifically to that page on your self-assessment. Incorporating, you're just a business, and this is why I think the rule is, my personal opinion is, it's completely unfair, because as soon as you say I'm a business, I'm incorporating, you're saying everything that comes in is income, everything that goes out is expenditure. My profit is what's left, you know, as it has been if you held it in your own private name for a good number of years, well, for always. And so you incorporate and you get back to that situation. It is as simple as that. All things being equal, speak to an accountant. If you already have property holdings, it might be a little bit trickier, because what do? You could take the decision, anything I own in my own personal name now, I'll keep it in my personal name, and going forward I'll do a limited company. Getting limited company finance is a little bit trickier. It's actually, do you know what, I'm not sure if it even is that much trickier anymore. It's come on leaps and bounds. In the last sort of 6 months, it's become very, very regular to get finance to buy a buy-to-let property in a limited company. It's become an awful lot easier. So that's again an indicator of what the market thinks. It really doesn't care either way. This is a good investment, I'll lend to you or to the limited company. Most of the time with a limited company, you have to give personal guarantees anyway, so it won't make much difference to the bank's point of view, and it doesn't really make much difference. You used to have to pay slightly more percentage rate. Again, that gap's really, really narrowing now. So it could be harder to buy in a limited company. Might not be. One of the tricky things to do would be to take an existing portfolio and put it into a limited company to incorporate. And this is an area where you definitely need specialist advice on. We have a method, and several of our clients have done it, where they have moved a portfolio, they've incorporated a portfolio without having to pay stamp duty or corporation capital gains, not corporation tax, sorry. And also managed to keep all the mortgages that they have in their own personal name. It's relatively complicated and in depth. and it's not without cost. The average cost would be something close to £2,000 to do it, but if it's going to save you many tens of £1,000s in tax over the term, then it's obviously very well worth doing. So the next steps, if you want to find out more, nice sunny morning, get in touch. So I'm sure, you know, marketing guys, they'll this will be up on all sorts of different places, in webinars, YouTubes. We take the same sort of content and it goes to wherever our clients are hanging out at the moment. And you know, wherever you're listening to or watching this, I'm sure there'll be something or somewhere to get in touch. Click, type in your email address, pick up the phone, go to our website, come and meet us, whatever it is. We run a monthly discovery day where clients come in, they get a chance to ask us all the questions. So if the question is, just tell us a bit more about what your accountant does and how he's taken you or some of your clients incorporated, come to the discovery day. It's the exact kind of question that we like answering there. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you. Hopefully that's been useful, and be in touch. Thanks for watching.